Hello everyone, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome back to yet another Mortal Kombat History of episode. Today, focused on yet another character featured in the recent Quan gameplay trailer, a remnant of the lost past, and current enforcer of the Empress's will, Khameleon. Ooh, 2 History of episodes in 1 week. Now today, we do have an interesting spin on things, as whilst I have previously strictly focused on touching on character origins, today I will also be tapping into why she's been such an elusive character throughout the franchise. As chances are, many of you have only ever heard of Khameleon in passing, yet you ever rarely see her, or do have her possibly be confused with her other Khameleon counterparts. So in today's video, we'll be analysing Khameleon's own history throughout the series, her impact on the overall greater narrative, and the somewhat exclusivity that has been tied to her character ever since her debut. But before we do begin, if you like what we do here and wish to see more, please don't forget to subscribe, as well as tick that bell to stay up to date with everything we do here. Anywho, let's just jump right into things. Now, Khameleon's own origins take place far before the events of the first game, as Khameleon is tragically one of many worlds that would be conquered by Shao Kahn, with her being a child born of Zaterra, home of the Saurians that are also better known as Zaterrans, or even Raptors. It isn't documented how old she is, yet it is worth noting that whilst Zaterra itself does exist in Outworld, the race itself actually derives from Earthrealm, only having been driven out due to Shinnok's war on the Elder Gods, which did spill out into the world of man. So forced to leave, her race would rebuild and create an entirely new society and home for themselves. Things seemed relatively peaceful upon their relocation, but in time came the ascension of Shao Kahn. Seeking conquest across the realms, Shao would engage the Saurians in Mortal Kombat, having his forces defeat them in tournaments and burn their world to the ground, with Shao himself nearly driving them to extinction, as the only remnants of Zaterra left would be Reptile, Khameleon, and presumably the other Khameleon with a C. Also worth pointing out, the identity of this character's race has never actually been officially canonized, due to his own obscurity in the franchise. But hey, if it looks like a duck. So in the fall of Zaterra, Reptile would be recruited by the likes of Shao Kahn, whereas Khameleon would be left as a lone remnant of her dying world. From this point onwards, it is believed that she would travel across the realm, trying to hunt down the remaining fragments of her world, salvaging what was left of her people with little to no success. So, with that said, this now takes us on to her debut in the series, in Mortal Kombat Trilogy. During this installment, where Shao Kahn would be forced to invade Earthrealm, having failed in his 2 prior attempts, Khameleon is finally able to track down Reptile, pleased to finally find another Saurian, but is horrified that he is aligned with the Emperor. During the events of this game, Khameleon would attempt to sway him from Shao's side, to unravel the poisonous grip he had wrapped around him by enlightening Syzoth to the truth and fate of his world. But whilst he listened, Reptile was too far gone to break his ties to the Emperor, having an undying loyalty to him that broke Khameleon's heart. Denied the opportunity to restore her home, Khameleon was forced to run away as her dreams and ambitions turned to dust. So in the aftermath of 3, she would disappear from the public eye, only resurfacing much later on during the events of Armageddon. In between this time, Khameleon honestly doesn't do very much narratively, as once she retreats from Xiao's fortress, all she does is linger in bitter hatred and shame. But upon learning the prophecy of Armageddon, and how its fire elemental blaze could empower someone to a status of an elder god, she would have her eyes set on it, especially after learning on Xiao's return he was also in pursuit of Blaze. She knew she had to win or die trying. So during the course of Armageddon, Khameleon would band with the forces of light in a losing effort against the forces of darkness, as both sides would take heavy casualties and inevitably crumble as Xiao was victorious. This then now actually takes us to Mortal Kombat 1, as Khameleon was entirely absent during the reboot event of 9 to 11. So now, in this new era and timeline, much has changed regarding the fate of Khameleon. Because with Xiao's reign having never taken place, the world of Zaterra is free to prosper and thrive without the threat of destruction. But most interestingly regarding Khameleon is actually her fate as an Umgadi. Now the Umgadi themselves are the royal court's personal guard, with them being taken at an extremely young age, typically firstborns from families, and are then recruited and taught to serve the empress and her line. So many grow up without knowing anything of their families. And the reason why this is all very interesting is because it all ties back to her physical appearance. Because characters like her and Reptile are seen as freaks amongst their people due to their shape-shifting abilities, granting them a human form. So how could this influence Khameleon? Well, it's actually pretty hard to say, but if we are lightly theorizing, it's very possible that her family migrated from Zaterra, maintaining their human appearance before she's taken by the Umgadi, or that she was found at a very young age in her human form. This could actually be the main reason why she maintains her human form throughout the story. But please do keep in mind, this is a theory. Now, Khameleon's role in the story can only be described as minor at best, as she's largely only utilized as a cameo during fights at the Sundo Festival, fighting fellow Saurian Reptile, and once more in a battle against Li Mei, as she seeks an audience with the Empress. So in terms of narrative significance, lore, and canon, Khameleon has always had a very minor impact. Yet, she's always been a character that's been in relatively high demand. But why is that so the case? Well, let's actually talk about it. As one of the reasons why Khameleon's appearance has been so reserved over the years is because she herself has been exclusively limited to different versions of the game. What I mean by this is that originally, when Mortal Kombat 3 came out, it was at a time where arcades and consoles could kind of coexist and compete against each other. But during this period came multiple ports and different versions of Mortal Kombat 3, such as Trilogy and Ultimate. Now the Khameleons, and yes, plural, would make their debut in Mortal Kombat Trilogy, being character-exclusive ports to PlayStation, Sega Saturn, PC, and N64. But Khameleon herself would only feature in the N64 version, so her audience and appeal were very niche, being strictly reserved to only one port of Trilogy. And a somewhat similar situation would happen for Mortal Kombat Armageddon, as whilst it is infamously known for having the largest roster of the franchise, she is actually absent on the roster, at least for PlayStation and Xbox. You see, originally, Khameleon herself wasn't supposed to make the cut, as the huge roster and time restraints were catching up to development. Plus, what didn't help was her featuring on bits of promotional material, and the official Xbox magazine having confirmed her, something that they would have to later clarify on to much backlash. But this reception didn't fall on deaf ears, as her inclusion would eventually happen, albeit it would come at a much later time, being added to Armageddon's roster, but only exclusively to that of the Wii version, as the port had come out 7 to 8 months later after the PlayStation and Xbox version. And with DLC not having really been a thing back then, Khameleon has only exclusively remained on the Wii version of the Armageddon port. Hence why Khameleon has always been a character you've heard more of than actually seen. She, for the most part, has always been heavily restricted to console exclusivity. And although this may not be anything new to the franchise, looking at you, Kratos, her disappearance from the entire reboot trilogy was most certainly felt, as there's been an entire generation of fans that actually missed out on an opportunity to be introduced to her. So I'm pleased with her return for Mortal Kombat 1, even if it is a very minor role to the story. So with that said, that has been it for the history of Khameleon, as well as her rather problematic history within the franchise. I hope you have enjoyed this one. As most I typically cover the character's origin, I've never actually taken the time to sit down and explore the rather problematic nature that comes from exclusivity and different various ports of the game. So with that said, what are your thoughts on Khameleon? Are you happy with her return? What are your thoughts on her being a cameo? And would you like to see her become fully playable later on? Please do comments down below, as I'd love to hear what you have to say. But for now everyone, that has been it for me. So as always, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting. I'll catch you all in the next one.